Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is MOGIBETH and I'm so happy you are here. I am a full-time reseller on the Poshmark app, and today I'm talking about a topic that has been front of mind for me for so long, and it is finding an office space. I already filmed this video and it was super long and boring, so how I'm going to kind of organize this video is basically telling you what I wish I would have known before finding an office space and what I did right. And the process of finding an office space is really kind of broken down into 4 phases. There is the preparation phase, the search phase, the negotiation phase, and then the post-negotiation phase. Today, I just wanted to talk to anyone who is considering looking for an office space, in the process of looking for an office space, and what I wish I would have known and what I think I did well. So let's start with the preparation phase. The very first thing you need to do before even considering an office space is looking at your financials and having a very clear idea of what your financial situation is within your business. If you have good bookkeeping practices, then you won't have to do much in terms of this. You can really just kind of look at where your business is right now, what the profitability of your business is. Profitability is just basically revenue minus your expenses. If you're looking for an office space, you are going to be increasing your expenses. And so you basically want to be able to at least break even and be able to pay yourself a livable wage. Livable wage is basically, to me, what I consider what you need to survive. So also have a very clear idea of what your living expenses are. So that is the first phase, but then also you want to do financial projections. So I did all of this and I think I did a good job of it. Financial projections in reselling is pretty easy to understand, because you're basically just, how can I increase my revenue to keep up with my increase of expenses in terms of an office space? When you're projecting your financial projections, you're looking at growth, and usually what growth means is an increase in inventory or an increase in your average sales price or your sell-through rate. Those are kind of the 3 factors that you're looking at in your growth. The thing that you can control the most, of course, is your active listings. So what I looked at when I was doing my projections is, okay, if I increase my active listings but maintain my average sales price and my sell-through rate, what kind of expenses could I then incur to meet my profitability goal? So if y'all want me to talk more about financial projections in the future, let me know, because I can do a really simple one. It's not that difficult, and break it down for you what I looked at. But during the preparation phase, I kind of understood, based off of my financial projections of where I am planning on heading in terms of active listings in the future, what I can budget for in terms of a lease space. And then, okay, I learned about this when I was really into manifestation, which I'm not so much anymore, but the idea of sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and writing out exactly what it is you want out of an office space. So I wrote down the square footage that I wanted, all the specs of the space that I wanted. So I wanted like natural light, I wanted it to be close to my house, I wanted there to be parking space. And then I also wrote down the budget that I wanted. I wrote down the term, so how long you want your lease space to be. Some leases you can find, especially on Craigslist, to be month to month. But in Portland, that is increasingly difficult. And so I knew if I really wanted to find a good office space, I had to be willing to commit to a 2 to 3 year lease term at least. And I landed on 3-year lease term. So I'm locked into the space for 3 years. So that was on there as well, and that's something that you definitely want to consider. Your city might have more options in terms of month-to-month lease space, which definitely allows for more flexibility. And I had a very clear understanding of where I wanted my business to go in the future, long-term, like how much I was willing to commit to this business, how much what my profitability goals were for the future. So when looking for a space that I wanted, I knew I wanted a good enough space to grow into. So all of those things helped me have a very clear understanding of what footing I had and what negotiating power I had, and what kind of thing I was looking for when the actual next phase began, which was the search. So I think I did the preparation phase fairly well. Where I went wrong is in the search phase. And I started out doing the right thing. What I did was I went on LoopNet and Craigslist, and I basically did a search for all the potential office spaces that could work for my needs. I made an Excel sheet of all of the spaces. What I should have done next was reach out to a leasing agent to represent me, send them that Excel spreadsheet, say, this is what I'm looking for, these are my needs, this is what I want. Then that person would have represented me, and they would have given me their professional advice and helped me throughout the whole process. I didn't do that, which, you know, was dumb. Because when you have a leasing agent, that comes at no cost to you. The owner or the lessor will front those costs within the lease, and so it is only to your benefit to have that kind of professional representation. And because I have my real estate license back in Kansas, I think I was being a little bit naive. I'm thinking that I didn't need one, and so I never had a commercial broker represent me, and I wish I would have. So if you are going to be looking for, you know, a long-term lease, like a, you know, more than month to month or more than 1 year, then I would highly recommend you get someone to represent you. And then my next mistake was I didn't look at enough spaces. I looked at, I think, 3 spaces. I would recommend looking at least 5 spaces, because again, it's only to your benefit. The more spaces that you look at, the more negotiating power that you have, the more secure you'll feel in choosing the space that you eventually choose. However, I will say the process is exhausting, and I just want to insert a clip here because this is kind of like a vlog diary that I did that was in the midst of the search process, and just kind of showing like how exhausted I was.
That's the theme of today, is just deep breaths. I actually looked at 2 office spaces today. Looking at these, just real talk really quickly, looking at these office spaces reminded me why I didn't want to really be a part of corporate America. There's just so much chest puffing involved, and there's so much judgment, especially, I mean, there's so much, people are just constantly just trying to kind of size you up, see like what you know, what you can offer, and you know, how seriously to take you, and it just removes a lot of the human element of life. And I try to kind of just remain myself and be myself, but that isn't really appropriate all the time in corporate America or in these like kind of negotiations. And so it's exhausting, constantly having to puff your chest and like prove yourself and all this stuff. So I think, and it induces a lot of anxiety and fear, I think, especially as like women. All the people I talked to today were white men. So, you know, nothing is white men, but it's just really obvious when you're the only woman in the room, and you have because of that, you have an additional layer of like proving yourself. So I'm tired. I'm ready to go watch The Bachelorette. It's the season finale tonight, and crunch some numbers. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow morning, and come up with a proposal. So, all right, I'll talk to you later.
So I went and looked at spaces, and the thing I did do well was I was not afraid to ask questions. I asked a lot of questions that I think a younger version of me would have been scared to think was a dumb question. I asked questions about the type of lease. So there are 2 different types of leases that I think you should be aware of if you're going into this process. There's a gross lease, which basically means when you're looking at commercial leases, they usually list it as a cost per square foot, and they'll either do the cost per square foot over the term of a month or over the term of a year. A gross lease, you're only paying that. So you're only paying that cost per square foot. and your utilities and everything else are included within that. Triple net lease, on the other hand, which is what I have, is going to be you're paying that plus a utilities, which is factored in per square footage per month, and that also includes any common areas. So here we have bathrooms, and we have an entry, and we have a freight elevator. So all the utilities for that is included in our collective triple net. So ask as many questions about that as possible that you can think of. Don't be afraid to look dumb. I wasn't, and that's something I think I did well. Some other questions to ask, is insurance required? Usually it is. Operating hours, like are there certain times at which the building will be kind of, maybe HVAC will be off, or security won't be on, or something of that nature. Just ask, can I come and go as I please? Are there any certain operating hours? I asked about the ability to expand, because as I talked about, that was something that was really important for me, is knowing where I want to be in 2 to 3 years, and having the ability, if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams, if I wanted to expand, would that be possible? What would that look like? I talked about relocation. I asked questions about relocation, because in a lot of leases, your landlord will have the ability to relocate you within the building if they see fit. So I asked if that had ever been done and what that would look like. I also asked questions about traffic, nearby traffic. Noise pollution was a big one, because I do create content like this, and so noises are just par for the course, but I at least don't have noises coming from the outside here. But some office spaces definitely do, especially if you're near a highway or something like that. And then things I wanted to make note of were things like, bathrooms, electric outlets, access to water for steaming and so forth. Natural light was a huge one for me. What exposure your space has, depending on which way your office windows are facing, will dictate when the best time to take photographs are, and what kind of common areas look like in the building. So I looked at a few spaces, like I said, and I'll just show you a couple of them here. I took some videos during that process, and then I was able to basically pick one based off of deliberating the pros and cons of each one, and start the negotiations process. And here is the one that I ended up choosing. Here's kind of like the raw shell of the one I chose. It has a 600 square foot office space up front, and it has a lot of natural light. It has I think like 6 windows in the office space itself, which is amazing, and it gets really good lighting. And then it also has a 1,300 square foot space in the basement for storage, which was perfect for my needs and really hard to find, because, and I want to get into this a little bit, with reselling, you are kind of caught in this weird space where you're both storing clothes and photographing clothes. And so usually you have to pick between one of the two. If you go for just purely an office space, you're going to be paying a premium, because office space is so much more expensive than warehouse or storage space. And so, but you will have the ability to make YouTube videos like this. You'll have the ability to take photos with natural light, set up a cute little space. You'll have natural light and windows, which was important to me in my mental health. I didn't really want to be in a basement or a warehouse 24/7. But then if you choose a warehouse space, you will have a lot more space, and you will be paying way less in rent. However, like I said, you won't necessarily have the most aesthetically pleasing space. You won't have necessarily natural light. And with a lot of warehouse spaces, you're kind of now in an industrial lease, and so things like heating and cooling is different, electrical outlets might be different. It's just a whole different ball game. So just depending on your area and what's available, the two different options have pros and cons. However, with this space in particular, because they have basement storage, which was rare in the places that I looked at in Portland, I was able to both have a different you know, dollar per square foot in my office space than I did in my storage space. And so I kind of got the best of both worlds, which was great. So the negotiation, I think actually I did fairly well, and I took a negotiations course in college, and so I learned a lot about like how to prepare for negotiation, what is on the table for negotiations, and just to go over briefly like kind of what is on the table. The cost, so the dollar per square foot is definitely on the table. The length of the lease, so the term, lease term, free rent, so you could have a free rent period in the beginning. You can have concessions for upgrades, so tenant improvement dollars, or your landlord potentially changing or upgrading something about the space. It's really important to kind of know what your reservation price is, so what you won't go beyond, and to have a very clear idea of what you feel comfortable with before going into the negotiation. And so for me, I wanted to basically get the cost of my rent down. That was my number one goal. And so I, you know, approached them first point in negotiation. I emailed them saying, here are the terms that I want. I was trying to kind of anchor them over here, because within any negotiation, you have, you know, what you want and what the landlord wants. And then hopefully there is what's called ZOPA, or a zone of potential agreement, where but what both of you are willing to do overlaps, and that's where you'll probably end up. And so you want to kind of anchor them over here, then they'll come back over here, and then you'll start negotiating until you meet in the middle. And that's kind of what happened. Is I said, okay, here are the terms I want. They're like, okay, we can't do that, but we can do this. And I was like, no, that doesn't work for me. We'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. And then we met in the middle. So what we were able to do is they were able to give me free rent up front, and then over time, over the years, it kind of went up little by little. And so instead of just cutting the initial you know, cost per square footage amount, they just kind of made it more prorated. And so that worked for both of us, because they are trying to sell this office space, and so they wanted something that at the end of the 3-year term, if I were to renew, I would be kind of at this higher rate. And then it works for me too, because I'm a new business and I wanted as low of a lease, especially up front, so I could have some wiggle room in order to grow and expand my business. And so it ended up working out for both of us. You know, it just took about a week to come to that agreement, and we had to meet several times, but I think in the end it ended up being, we were both happy and walked away feeling like we got a good deal. So, and that's really what you want, is you want to be very confident in what you're willing to do and what you're willing to walk away from, but then also not use scarcity tactics or badgering tactics or any kind of tactics that would you know, make it an unpleasant process. You want to maintain a healthy relationship with your landlord, but still feel like you're getting a very good deal from it. So, because at the end of the day, your landlord wants you to succeed as well, because they want you to be able to pay your rent on time every month. And so if they see you negotiating and being diligent and fastidious and looking after the well-being of your business, then they're going to feel assured that you have a good grasp on basically being a competent business person. If you just kind of sign any old lease and don't care, I think that is maybe sending signals that you don't know what you're doing. So don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't be afraid to be assertive and confident and know what you're going after and what you're willing to walk away from as well. Once we had decided on terms, they did a personal credit check and a business credit check. So in reselling, I think a lot of times we talk about like how we want to maintain a debt-free business, and I think that definitely has its advantages. However, it definitely has disadvantages, and I just want to talk about it here. Not having business credit means that if you were to ever take out a loan or ever sign a lease, or basically just be liable for anything, you will have to sign a personal guarantee, which basically means that if you default on the loan or the lease, you are personally liable for that, even if you have an LLC. So building business credit is highly beneficial because it means that you are protected. Your personal assets, such as your home, are protected. I have business credit, but it just wasn't it has been established for less than a year. It's just not very good or very established. So I did have to give a personal guarantee as well, which just means if I can't make rent, I personally am on the hook. So once I filled out an application, they did a credit check, and they made it clear that I would have to sign a personal guarantee. Then they sent over the lease. I read it over several times, which took forever. Asked any questions that I had, and I was not afraid to take my time asking questions and do my due diligence. If I had a real estate agent, they would even be able to help me more, but that was a regret I had, as I said earlier. And then I signed the lease. I signed a personal guarantee. I sent them a check for a security deposit and for first month's rent, and I moved in almost that week. So it was a very quick process. I mean, it took like 2 weeks of hair pulling a little bit, and I was very exhausting, but then I moved in. And so now I'm in the process of kind of setting up the space and trying to figure out what I want it to look like, and I'll do an office tour as soon as that happens. But I am so excited to be here, and I think it is going to be a really good home for my business to grow in. I hope this was helpful to y'all. Of course, this was not a how-to video. If you are in the process of finding an office space or want to find an office space, definitely consult professionals and consult your accountant, a lawyer, a real estate agent. I'm not a professional in this regard, but I just think it's really cool to familiarize yourself with the discussion of what it could look like. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me today in my office. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye. Love y'all.